Hello and welcome to the after party. I'm No White Guilt, and I am with the Great Order. The crown winner of last week is Bartleby for gifting a total of 25 Prometheus Rising dollars. Adulations and congratulations. In second place was 41 BMC, gifting $20. Congratulations and thank you as well. Financially gift on Entropy at 15%, and I'll have that up in just a moment, where you can also watch the stream, ask and vote on questions, and if I get around to a poll, I'll post there. You can participate in it. You also have the option of Cash App at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Today on tap, we have the famous and heroic Sarah Dye. Sarah, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and tell everyone about you and your projects in just a moment, and also where folks can find you. And then after you do that, Mr. George is going to take over. But before I have you do that, Sarah, I want to tell the audience what I just told Sarah before we started the show, and that is this is one of the rare times that I am already in love with a woman before I meet her. So thank the good Lord that we were able to get her on the show. She is heroic, and her family is absolutely wonderful. We are delighted to have her here. Sarah, please introduce yourself and tell the folks where they can find you.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet both of you. It's an honor to be here. I am Sarah Dye, as you said. I also go by Vasilisa, which is a nod to a wonderful Slavic folk tale. And I am also the hostess of Hearth and Helm, a podcast that I started. I am a mother, a homesteader, a wife, and a homeschooler living in the Midwest United States. And that's pretty much a basic summary.
All right. Well, welcome, Sarah, to the after party. As Jason said, we're very excited to have you. And there's a lot of things you cover that our community here are very interested in. I mentioned to you we've had requests for panels and special shows on homesteading and homeschooling, two things you're very involved in. So we're going to touch on those things, and hopefully you can come back and join some specialty shows that might be more focused. But since it's your first time, we're just going to give an overview of what you're about. And we'll start just with the story that kind of broke you into some people's awareness, and that is your experience getting banned at a farmer's market or attempts against you. So if you could just start by filling the folks in about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Last year in June of 2019, my family and I became the target of vehement hatred by anti-whites locally and nationally and even internationally. I was doxxed as a member of a nationalist organization, American Identity Movement. And basically, the anti-whites proceeded to do what anti-whites always do, which is the facts are never enough. And they piled on an immense amount of dangerous lies about myself and my husband, and an insane amount of fear mongering in the community, and just have relentlessly for almost a whole year now tried to do everything they possibly could to ruin our life. They were successful at removing me as board president from a small farmers market that I had helped found. But the real worst part of the situation is our bread and butter farmers market. We, for 10 years, have sold produce. That is our sole source of livelihood. We're organic farmers and have sold at this very successful farmers market that sees up to 10,000 customers walk through it on a given Saturday. To give you a little bit of perspective about how important this particular farmers market is for the region, for the state, and for all of the farmers who make a living there. Unfortunately, the local government officials endorsed the actions of these very hateful groups that were slandering us, handing out flyers, shoving flyers into the hands of our customers right in front of our booth, which the flyers contained pure defamation, horrible defamation. attempting to connect us to things that we have no connection with whatsoever. I mean, we have been stalked, vandalized. Oh my goodness, the local government officials endorsed the actions of these people publicly, made statements saying that they supported the great work that these people were doing. They have shut down our PayPal. I mean, it has just been an onslaught, a nonstop onslaught of terror, essentially, that they've tried to perpetrate on us. I mean, one photo that went viral last year on Twitter was Black Bloc Antifa coming to the farmer's market and standing in front of our booth while I was holding my baby. My husband was there. Our 2 older children were sitting in the back of the pickup truck. And, you know, these haters came and with all black and masks and were there in an attempt to intimidate us out of the farmer's market. I mean, I could go on and on, but that's kind of a summary of it.
But we're in charge, you know, we run everything and we're privileged, right?
Right.
Yeah, just a word from our sponsors, right? Jason, were you about to say something?
Well, I was just hearing what Sarah had to say there. And one of the reasons why I love this woman and her family so much from afar, as I say, I had many people come to me and tell me about this story. And then people sent me clips about what the anti-whites were doing to this. And this is exactly what it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we are building a community that is going free, that is empowered with a lexicon and dialectics that we can use in our defense as psychological weapons against these anti-white thugs. When they show up, we need to have a community that is so strong. They show up and they can put pinpointed pressure on an individual. And we saw that happen just this past week with Laura Towler, didn't we? We saw these 6-figure whites at the helm of this tea company decide that they were going to crush this normal, middle-class, blue-collar, regular working lady, somebody just both Laura and Sarah here, both as sweet as can be. And they decided they were going to bring public opprobrium, that they were going to have this social lynching because you're not anti-white, because you're heretical. And so they want to destroy you for that. And so when this sort of thing happens, we need to come together. We need to be like this community needs to be like a net, so that when the anti-whites think they're going to put some pinpointed pressure on a family, and make no mistake, I'm going to say it again, Mr. George knows exactly where I'm going with this because he's psychic, and that is that when they're trying to deny Sarah and her husband their ability to make an income, what they're actually trying to do is prevent their children from eating. What they're actually trying to do is prevent their children from getting medicine. What they're actually trying to do is to prevent them from paying their mortgage, because it's not the money that the paper that Sarah and her husband need. It's all of those things they need to be alive. And so that is what the anti-whites are endeavoring to deprive them of. When they do this sort of thing, we need to come together like a giant net and make sure that we apply pinpointed pressure on all of those ends. So I struck back at the leadership, telling the leadership at the tea company, Yorkshire Tea, that they should quit because they're white. Or do they practice what they socially lynch young women for? Or are they just going to socially lynch young women and then go get in their Jaguar at the end of the day? So when these sorts of things happen in the future, I don't want a world where a heroic woman is standing up by herself, supported by her family, supported by her husband, but standing up by herself at the front of this mob of people that she's trying to beat back these lies that anti-whites are hurling at them, and going to all of these elected officials and sheriffs and whatever else it might be, and getting them to side with them. I don't want it to be just one heroic woman anymore. I want us to rain down on these anti-whites, call for their dismissals, expose their skeletons in their closets. Let's make a world, let's make a community where when the anti-whites think that they're going to get away with harming us, going free, serving white well-being, when they think they're going to harm us, they're going to have another thing coming. Because we can't have this anymore. We can't have these beautiful, strong, heroic women standing up by themselves. And then you have other spheres in the white positive sphere as a whole who would say things like, say childish, immature things like, oh, we can't have women, or we can't have all of this sort of nonsense. When they do nothing, when our women stand up alone by themselves, how many of our women are going to have to be struck down How many families are going to have to be attacked? How many white children are going to be put under threat before you decide to move? Why don't we immediately know all of the things about all of these elected officials that they would like kept secret? Why don't we immediately have all of this information? Why aren't we immediately raining down to make sure that, look, the anti-whites are going to know? You can go and you want to go and mess around with other parts of the white positive sphere that aren't a real community built in love, built in the perpetuation of who and what we are as a people, as Western kind, and our culture that we create in our civilization. You want to go mess with those other ones that want to look like the ne'er-do-well, the bad guy in the anti-white narrative? Well, then you can go and mess with them, and they'll make sure to cower in front of you and to just spout the words from the anti-white narrative that they're supposed to spout. But if you come messing with our families in the white positive sphere in service to white well-being, you're going to have another thing coming. We're not going to let it go. And if nothing else, if you're a man out there and you're wondering, well, how do I be a man these days? Well, act a little bit, show a little bit of the courage that Sarah showed with all of the steps that she took back against these anti-whites who tried to ruin her and her family and who continue to vex and be a problem with these people. So I wanted to say that because I felt like it's really important. I'm really tired. This is one of the things I've been working for over decades now in the white positive sphere, is having a heartbeat to the movement. A heartbeat is a family, a man and woman coming together, both going free, same ideology, teaching their children the psychological defense for the psychological warfare waged against them. That means it'll be generational. It'll last even when we are gone. And to be able to do that, to demonstrate that we have the talent, the ability, the courage, the tenacity, the desire to be a self-starter, which obviously if you're going to be a farmer, you got to be a self-starter. To be able to do such a thing, we have to immediately rally when one of our members is attacked, instead of what I've seen for decades in the white positive sphere, which is this immediate, everybody runs for cover. It's like it's like when a predator goes to pull down a gazelle, or worse, or it's even worse. It's like when one roach gets crushed, all the others run underneath of the cabinetry and everything like that. That is how they behave elsewhere. That's not what we're going to do here anymore. So a big, and I don't want to, and I'll pass it right back. And Sarah, you can comment on what I said, and we'll give it back to Mr. Jared. But I also want to say a big salute and a big thank you to those who did come forward to help Sarah and her family in this time of need. I don't want to overlook those people who did show the heroism and do the right thing. But Sarah, if you have anything you'd like to say to that, and then Mr. George, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, well, that's definitely, thank you so much for the compliment, and it's a huge honor. I certainly can't take the credit myself. I mean, my husband is my partner in life and my soulmate, and we are a team. And yeah, he's the rock in my world. And if it weren't for him, I would have absolutely been crushed by this, absolutely crushed. I mean, especially as a woman and as a homeschool mother, the tendency to hide away, it would have been easier to just kind of hide away. But, you know, he has been just amazing, and, you know, encouraging me to continue attending our homeschool activities and continue doing the farmers market that I love, that I've been vending at for 10 years. And, you know, so thanks to him, and he deserves the honor as well. And also I would add that that's one of the many reasons that I believe that these haters have gone after me and us so hard, is that we are a happily married couple. We've been together for 15 years. And that is so rare nowadays for someone my age, in my early 30s. And the fact that we have 3 white male children, and the fact that we have worked hard and put blood, sweat, and tears into doing our own thing, to building our own business up out of pocket, you know, with no loans, nothing. We little by little have built our small business, which is providing healthy food to our community, something as just as wholesome as you could possibly imagine. And also, you know, I could go on and on about the various motivations for the haters, and what has caused them to go so hard against us. And those are some of the things. And also one of the major things is that I was once a serious anti-white person. I was one of them, and they know that. And there is absolutely a group of people locally who knew me back then. And, you know, it's perhaps shocking. I don't know if anybody who's listening right now is familiar with the Tinley Park attacks of Chicago in 2012, but a violent group of anti-whites who call themselves Antifa, 18 of them, attacked a group of people dining in a cafe who apparently were a part of some sort of heritage group. I'm not familiar with it at all. I don't endorse them. I don't know who they were. However, I do know that these 18 individuals walked in with carpenter hammers, tire irons, and other weapons and beat the heck out of these unarmed people. And in 2014, I attended a Christmas party and I met two of the people who were involved in those attacks. And I was still 100% steeped in my anti-whiteism that I shook their hands and I patted them on the back and I said, good job, man. Thanks for taking one for the team. That is how much I was steeped in that environment.
Sarah, let's talk about that. Let's get deeply into that then, because someone was asking, Rum was asking about this in the chat, a member of our community a few minutes ago, about it's always helpful to hear someone's story and how you changed your mind frame, your perspectives. Verbiage too. We know that you have an interest in language, and Jason is so keen on developing language as he's done. But before we even get to that, the first step is take us through that and take as much time as you need, how you got from there to here.
Ooh, well, yeah, I could write a book, and I hope to someday on that. But to try to summarize, it was a lot of things. Biggest thing, I really do think that there was a time period, and I am looking at this from a metaphysical viewpoint, and perhaps you guys and perhaps the listeners will know what I'm talking about, but I truly believe that around 2015 and into 2016, there was a huge polarization. There was something going on. I mean, I'm a very spiritual person. I'm very interested in esoteric things. And I really do believe that there was something metaphysical going on during that time. And essentially, it was as simple as someone that I knew presenting some information to me and also referring me to red ice. And I went to red ice and I had an open mind, and I would certainly give credit to them for helping, present information that kind of caused me to stop looking at everything with only emotion and to start essentially just noticing things, to allow myself to just start noticing things. And I started noticing the double standards and learning about, just various things in history and then just, and whether or not those various things in history were correct or not, it was more so of an anger and a frustration that I was just now in my adulthood even hearing about these major events that had occurred in history. Okay, so it was almost like just basically an awakening and thinking, well, hey, I've always considered myself an open-minded person, but I don't think that I had been, and my peers around me were not. And I would also add to that with my peers who were also parents, most of them also parents, observing as our children started to come into school age. At the time I just had my first son, and I think we were maybe giving birth to our second son around that time. But essentially, being around some of these other parents that I had considered close friends and realizing that we were already naturally going down very divergent paths with our parenting. I was, I had always, even in my former anti-white days, intended to homeschool. But hearing, their ridiculous reasons for not wanting to homeschool and bashing homeschool, and also the promotion of the early sexualization of children, that was one of my biggest wake-up calls, I think, was realizing that not only did these peers of mine not want to protect their children from some of the horrible degeneracy in the modern world, but they were going to intentionally expose their children to the horrible degeneracy. So it's like,
what was the rationale behind that?
I'm sorry, what?
What was the rationale behind that? That their children wouldn't grow up to be like sex negative adults or something like that?
I think it was a lot of different things. I mean, I'm talking about people who, some of them actually went to college to study things like gender studies, so they already were coming from such a radical viewpoint that, I mean, and I'm not kidding you, and this is a depressing thing, but many people in these circles want to intentionally make their children have gender dysphoria. I mean, that's like a goal of theirs, and they pat each other on the back and celebrate it when that occurs. I mean, it is absolutely a signaling thing that's going on there. And so as far as that rationale, you have the ones that are just essentially insane. And then I think that also there are the ones who feel that if they expose their children to all of the degeneracy that's out there, that it'll somehow make them their child's best friend and somehow prevent teenage rebellion, which is an absolutely ridiculous concept. It's a cope, and it's weak, and it's a disgusting and what maybe some people might view as an easier route versus discipline and taking the time to really teach your children and be present with them. And I also, I just think it's ridiculous, because the fact is, when children are coming of age, they very well may have some sort of rebellion, and that's going to be their natural life process. And whether it's like you may or may not be able to prevent that, but I would certainly rather look back on my child's younger years and know that I did everything I could to raise them well. And if they end up going some other way, then at least I will know that I did my absolute best. I mean, why would you intentionally want to deprive your children of a wholesome childhood? I just think that it's definitely a symptomatic of deep-seated anti-whiteism and a desire to destruct the West.
I got to jump in very briefly, because you're amazing. First of all, folks, I want to point out, she just said anti-whiteism, right? So she's calling the doctrine by what it is. Earlier, she called the anti-whites, she called that call themselves Antifa. She specifically said anti-whites who call themselves Antifa. Remember, it doesn't matter what we don't give them the names they give themselves. They're going to call themselves the cherubs that protect heaven, and then the conservatives are going to call them that. We don't call them that here. They're anti-whites. In all ways, they're anti-whites. If you want to say the particular group that calls them anti-whites who call themselves Antifa, then that's how you say it. Anti-whites who call themselves feminists, that's how you say it. But you acknowledge exactly what they are, because there are a number of things going on here when you do so. And they're very powerful for us. It's one of the reasons why we're becoming a real community, and everybody else is spitting in the wind. But I pass it back.
Yeah, please continue if you have anything more on specifically your thought process. So you were observing the divergent paths you and your friends were taking, other parents. What other things exposed you to the fact that even though we're told we're privileged and all of this, that there's actually vehement attacks and anti-white narrative just baked into mainstream education and media, kind of like water to a fish, many people don't realize?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the list is long. I certainly had a lot of friends who were anti-whites who called themselves feminists. And, hearing stories, having conversations. So as I was kind of starting to assess this different thought process, I was having open dialogue with some of these friends who claimed to love debate and open dialogue and claimed to have open minds. And so we would have some of these really engaging, deep conversations. And over time, I realized that they were, well, of course, you know what happens when these people lose an argument. They start name calling. But essentially, for quite a while, being involved in some of those conversations, I was hearing things, literally, women say things like, when white males rape, it is way worse than when non-white males rape. Okay, that's a statement that was owned and preached and believed by these women. And when and I mean, the amount of mental gymnastics you could do with that particular statement right there, right? I mean, that's saying a lot of things. That's obviously a ridiculous statement, but this is just to give you an idea of some of the mentality. For instance, another conversation with some of these women was like, they had attended a women's sisterhood kind of spiritual retreat gathering, and the non-white women told all the white women, you know what, we're going to go over here. We're going to have our own really special ceremony. Only the non-white women are allowed. The white women, you can't come and do this. And so I'm engaging, my sister with this conversation, not my blood sister, but a friend. And I'm asking her, well, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? That seems really ridiculous and unfair. And why did nobody speak out? Or also there's the other side of that coin, which is, Okay, fine, let them go do their own thing. But can we do ours? Of course not. You know, we could never do that. We could never say, all of the European sisters are going to go over here and do a sweat lodge and the non-white women are not welcome. You know, there's no way. There's no way. That would be international news if something like that occurred. So it's just all of this assessment and more conversations, and coming to realize that that I was not surrounding myself with the people who I wanted to be surrounded with. And it was a really rough thing as a woman, because I still to this day care about many of those female friends. And it's sad to me. I have no idea how some of them are living their lives now. I mean, at the time that I parted ways with that lifestyle and those people, several of them were talking about wanting to leave their husbands. And I found myself being one of the only women in my social circle who was speaking out against that and discouraging that, and actually trying to help help them by offering healing ideas that they could implement in their marriages. But no, they weren't interested in that. I mean, just radicalism, just wild radicalism. I mean, one of the theories that was being largely promoted in those circles back then, and again, keep in mind, I'm the mother of sons. Okay, so obviously I would reject this horrific theory, but these women were talking about the parthenogenesis theory, but also very much manipulating it to fit an even more radical agenda. But essentially, and this is going to sound far out, but some of these women believe this, that once upon a time, the earth was inhabited only by females, that they only conceived female babies. And then they decided at one point in time that maybe they should conceive some males. And so they self-conceived some males. But now the males have gotten so patriarchal and that, they're so awful that we all need to start teaching ourselves again how to get back to only self-conceiving. I mean, this is like the kind of stuff, this is just like common thought process. So if that just gives you an idea, it was just my husband and I would just have so many conversations, and we'd be like, oh my goodness, like this is not right, but we would also second guess ourselves as we were waking up out of anti-whiteism. And I would certainly say I was far more steeped in it than my husband. But as we were waking up out of that, I just recall checking in with myself and saying, wait a minute, is this the bad stuff? Am I going down this bad path? Because that's what they teach you. The second that you start to stop hating yourself, you have all of this like deep-seated indoctrination, and so there's a lot of like layers coming off there. But essentially, just to give an analogy, a boring analogy, but it was like, it's like trying to apply emotion to a math problem. You can't do it. You will not arrive at the correct answer. And so it's like stripping the emotion away, going through the order of operations, and then continuing to come to the same answer over and over again. It was like my husband and I were like, yeah, no, this is crazy stuff. But I mean, we don't hate ourselves anymore. It's great. I mean, I've never felt so happy and healthy in my life. It's like coming home. Yeah,
well said, going free. Sarah, speak of the emotions. In this process, did you become consciously aware of programming, of emotional seeds that were planted in you when you were younger, that were these poison seeds that you now had to, I'm not a farmer, so help me with the analogy, but these poison seeds that you had to get rid of?
Absolutely. I mean, I had spent, I'm sorry?
A couple you can think of that you had become conscious of that you said, wow, this is why I think this way. In other words, where those emotions were rooted to begin with, things you might have heard as a child, things that you were taught, social signaling from peers at a very young age, why you're having these emotions that were initially clouding these things that you were discovering along this journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still trying to uncover the roots of all of that. I mean, obviously, it's just from my perspective now, as we can see, it's everywhere. So to pinpoint an example or two is quite difficult. I mean, I certainly recall being told as a child that if I had been non-white or of mixed composition, that I would be more special, like some of the other children that I was around. I mean, that was a very common thing as a very young child. And also just these—
You told that by teachers or by family?
Family. Yep. Absolutely. Wow. Family members. It wasn't my mother or my father, but yes, there was a family member. So
wow. Our people are very sick, guys. Our people are very sick. Very sick. And what we're trying to do is heal us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I had made a statement, one of the leaked statements that I made under my former online name, which was Folk Mom, which said something like, as a non-white, or I'm sorry, as a white person living in a non-white neighborhood or community, that you suffer a lot. And this was one of the statements that these anti-whites took with my docs and was just like rabid, you know, and flipping out and creating this mass hysteria over. And it's like, you know what? I have lived in non-white neighborhoods and it was terror. Our house was shot up multiple times. And there were people selling drugs in our front yard. The police would come. They would not come at all. They would do nothing when my mother was calling 911. And then here I was listening to, you know, rap music in my bedroom and wishing I was cool like them. And I mean, this is the kind of programming that children consume. It's so regular that that the parents don't even realize it. You know, it's a constant stream of, you know, if you're putting your child in front of a television, I mean, that's all they're going to be consuming. You know, then of course there's education-wise. So I mean, education-wise, the history classes are taught obviously with a strong agenda, one-sided history almost all the time. It's an anti-white agenda in the history classes. So that was a major component. I mean, as a young woman, I had, you know, a hatred for myself, for my heritage, for my ancestors. I mean, I felt awful. I felt like I was responsible for all the bad things that had happened to everybody else in the world. And you know, there was a time even when my oldest son, who's now almost 11, right before waking up to all of this, I had even said to him as a young boy, and hopefully he was young enough that he's grown out of it. I mean, I'm mortified to say this, but I had even said to him, you know, well, once upon a time, you know, there were indigenous people living in this country, and the white man came and murdered them all, and it was awful. I mean, I'm so sickened to admit that I would say that to my child. I mean, that is psychological abuse, and and you know, thank my gods that I woke up out of that and never ever would say anything like that to my children again. And on the opposite side of the coin, instead, we talk about our ancestors almost every day. You know, we get out old photos, we look at maps of Europe, we point to the couple of villages that we know that our ancestors came from. We talk about the good of our people, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing mean or hateful or evil about that. And it's the anti-whites that are the ultimate projectors. They are the ultimate projectors that through this entire saga of our docs, they have tried to claim that it is us who wishes to inflict harm on others, which is the farthest thing from the truth. Neither my husband nor I has ever said any such thing. We've never thought any such thing. But yet I've got hundreds of examples of locals, people in my region of the state, in my community, who are absolutely inciting violence, who are putting my picture and my address on a wanted poster with dangerous lies that they have completely fabricated, even though they know the truth of it all, with the intent for others to do us harm. And they are pushing policies and getting involved in our government that will inflict harm on my children when they're adults. And it's an absolute farce. I mean, my child cannot get a college scholarship based on the color of his skin. Yeah. There's no box for him to check that says, are you know, can you check any of these boxes? No, of course not. He's a white male. He's one of the most hated people in the West today. And I will absolutely continue to speak out about that. And these people thought that they could suppress my voice and scare me into a corner, and they were wrong. And it's just, no, I have children. I'm going to have more children. And I hope that more women, more mothers, more people can wake up to this. I mean, I want to tell these people, if you're watching now, if you're one of these haters who's watching Sarah die on the screen, I'm going to tell you right now, stop abusing your children. Stop abusing yourself. You've done nothing wrong. Your ancestors have done nothing wrong. We have bent over backwards to try to be kind. And I still do. I'm still kind. I'll continue being kind because that's a part of what makes me and my people who we are. But no, it's just it's a lie, and it needs to be called out.
Yeah, there's people saying how this is a powerful testimony. And one of my favorite words, guys, you know, you hear me say this a lot. What Sarah is demonstrating in her story and now how she's presenting herself is high character. This is high character. This is what we all need to be again. This is what we were, and this is what we're reclaiming. Please tell us a little bit about your show, Hearth and Helm, and particularly this question that you often put in front of yourself, which is, what is my revolt? So tell us a little about that, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the compliment too. Hearth and Helm is a podcast that I started with two female friends of mine who are also mothers and homeschoolers and who are also in the white positive sphere. And the intention of the podcast is essentially to provide something positive, to provide a little bit of a relief. I mean, the political atmosphere out there and the abundance of anti-white hatred it really does black pill people. It bogs people down. And I know that a lot of our folk are plagued with depression and a lack of inspiration. And so that's the purpose of the podcast, is to essentially offer something positive. But also, all three of us women happen to be very much into natural, holistic type of lifestyle, and eating healthy foods, learning traditional crafts, traditional skills. We all have a passion for homesteading and living close to nature, and communing with nature, growing food, and working with herbal medicines, and that sort of thing. So we are combining our collective knowledge and trying to kind of put out the information that we know about these things out there. But we also have a wide variety of guests that come on the show too. We talk about childbirth and homeschooling and family issues, marriage, just a wide variety of things that are more on the cultural side of things. So that's the intention with the podcast. And also, we have a blog on Subscribestar, so we're trying to do a lot more blogging. And we're certainly open to other like-minded women to join us if they want to contribute or come on the show. But as far as my revolt, this is actually something I think that my co-host, I think I picked up from my co-hostess, Lady Lazarus. I think that she was the person who kind of coined this little thing. But essentially, my revolt it kind of refers to the Revolt Against the Modern World book by Julius Evola, which admittedly I have not read that book. My husband has, so I can glean bits and pieces from him. He's more into Evola. So it's not so much though about Evola's work and the book Revolt Against the Modern World, as much as it is just about the interpretation of the phrase revolt against the modern world. And so basically, I feel like what tends to happen with some people when they start to wake up out of anti-whiteism is that they will land in communities, online communities, or they'll get kind of addicted to some of these commentators who are essentially bad actors and are offering kind of a vicious spiral in an unhealthy way, and they'll tend to start leaning towards extremism. And so I think that for myself and for the ladies on the show, it's kind of like the proper way to go about things, I think, is that let your revolt be something positive, something good, something that's coming from a place of love. And that has to start with yourself. So you must dig deep and find your own talents and live a life fully, one that is connected with nature, one that is focused on self-improvement, and especially one that's focused on family, because we don't want to continue to atomize ourselves and sit on computers just being angry and typing angry words. And I mean, that can be a vicious spiral. So essentially, what is my revolt? My revolt is to embrace motherhood, to embrace the love of my husband, to grow food in healthy soil that we have nourished with organic matter. That is my revolt. And the modern world, it's not as though we're Luddites or anything. There are plenty of beautiful things about modern civilization that our people have created that are wonderful, that we love and appreciate. However, as we all know, there is a lot of, and I hesitate to use this overused word, but toxicity, addiction, pornography, food that is not even food, it's all got to go. It's all parts of the modern industrialized world that are very negative and that are greatly detrimental to our biospirit, right? So we are seeking a lifestyle and things that are life-giving, essentially. So that's kind of what that phrase for us is all about.
Well, you're definitely speaking our language here. And I'll just briefly say I fully agree with you and felt myself what you mentioned before about shifts and what was going on in the middle of last decade now. I experienced that myself when I've spoken with Henrik and Lana. I've got the opportunity to tell them that I went on a similar arc that they did. I actually discovered them probably latest 2010, initially when they were still in their esoteric kind of stuff. It still touches on what they do now, informs what they do now, but obviously it's not the focus of what they're doing. And because they're truth seekers and because they're people with high character, they eventually ended up at all this. You know, there were a lot of people that thought there was going to be this change in consciousness that they didn't realize that there's a lot of poisons that have to come out first. And we're in that detox right now. Obviously, I don't have to tell anyone listening right now in June of 2020 that we're experiencing that on a wide scale level right now. But I'm very much in line with what you're saying. I've been on a similar arc. Red Ice has been, a pivotal for me as well. Let's use that, actually, speaking of Red Ice, as a perfect segue to talk a little more about something near and dear to us here too, and you as well. And that is what you mentioned with the cultural angle and in the experiential. So you were talking about how when you were awakening, you had to sometimes decouple your emotions and your old programming with the facts and think through them and follow that where it leads, which is a very noble thing to do. However, the other side of that coin is that human beings are we still are feeling creatures as well. We're not robots and automatons. I know there's a spectrum of people with different mindsets and personalities, but Jason and I talk about this all the time. There's a lot of people who are not going to be won over just by presenting them statistics and charts and graphs and all of that. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on how subtly, just in an experiential way, just showing people our symbols again. For some reason with me, I mentioned to you, I noticed you have the picture on Twitter right now where you have the floral wreath in your hair. That's something from our people's history. Our women wear that in folk ceremonies. I've always responded to that. I think it's beautiful. So there, different things like that hit some of us in different ways, but these symbols, the calendar, the rhythm of the year, that's something I'm into as well. How incorporating that and just presenting that in front of people and not even arguing with them, but just the more subtle aspect of what these experiences, what these symbols, what the landscapes and pictures, art, whatever it is, the way you live your life is communicating something, and how that not only is beneficial for you, but there's kind of a ripple effect as well. I think there's a way that other people kind of get the message or get the signal. It's not, again, only debates about history and economies and crime stats and all of that. So please take it away on that subject.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's quite a question. I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head. I mean, imagery is huge. It's a major factor in imprinting things on our minds. And you're right. I mean, it speaks for itself. Our traditional folkways are beautiful, and I think that people are craving that. I mean, we have been so deprived and have been living in this very hostile kind of anti-white atmosphere for so long, and then of course you bring in the elements of just everything being the plastic throwaway culture, and handmade items are so rare now, and everything is just disposable, and everything is so fast paced, and it's really it takes energy away from, again, I love this term, our biospirit. It really does. And so the imagery is great. I mean, I also think that, here's one of the things that I awakened to in my process years ago was the word propaganda. I mean, from my understanding for years, just the word propaganda was something bad, and you learn that. But by definition, propaganda doesn't necessarily mean something negative or bad. It depends on how it's being used and what the intention and purpose behind it is. And we certainly see plenty of anti-white propaganda, and that is bad propaganda. And we need to learn how to identify it. But using positive propaganda is another side to that coin. So yeah, it's beautiful. We also celebrate, the Wheel of the Year and the traditional holidays of our folk, and that's why I had the picture of us. Our family did a maypole with the children, which wasn't exactly a perfectly woven maypole because our 3 wild children were running around, but just doing those little things, like a little bit incorporated into your life, can go a long way. Even just like you said, marking something on the calendar and noticing those holidays is important. But yeah, I think it's all great, and that's really a huge part of Hearth and Helm, the podcast. And this project with the ladies and I, and we have to try to stop ourselves because, our intention is to keep it positive and inspiring. And we all are also very passionate about the political side of things too. But for the most part, what we try to remind each other is that there are already plenty of content creators out there who are the ones who've got all of the crime stats, right? And they're very good at what they do. They're very good at presenting the political side of all of this. And we want to step back and let those folks, and including you guys, handle that aspect of it. And yeah,
that's not really my thing either.
Yeah.
I'm more on your page.
Yeah. And I think too that for a lot of people, when it's been years of this, when you have been kind of awakened to the anti-whiteism for so long, like I said, it can just start getting really blackpilling. So that's what we're going for. There are some great folks on Twitter too. I think like Traditionalist Western Art is one that I follow, and just seeing, even, my goodness, seeing pictures of some of the sculptures and art and landscapes of our ancestral homeland, and even in this ancestral homeland of America, places that I have yet to be able to travel to, just seeing that imagery is inspiring, and it's therapeutic and healing, I think, to our eyes, to our minds. So I don't know if that really answers your question.
No, it does. This is the shift that was going on. It's a little different than the new agey people thought. It's you can't hold on too tightly to your presumptions. These things have a way of surprising people. That's why you can't really see what is going to shift before it happens. There's a lot of people who were unlikely characters who have showed up in this. I was blown away that they don't use the term new age. They don't like this term, but outsiders might label them such. It's the generally high consciousness, alternative news, spirituality kind of thing. A publication called New Agora. They're out of Canada, but apparently they're very popular on the American West Coast. They have a large following, have republished some of my articles. And I spoke to the editor and said, "You know who I am and what I do, right?" And he said, "Yeah, I do. And you're right and we don't care. Like this is the truth, and European people have a right to be themselves, and it fits in. We don't think that it's antithetical to what we're about." This is a kind of site where, the side ads, the businesses that pay for ad space on this place, or for like yoga retreats and things like that. This would have been unfathomable 20 years ago, but this is a shift happening,
Absolutely. Yeah. Congratulations. That's really neat. I'll have to check that out. That's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah. It's one of many things where we just see a lot of these surprises popping up, surprising, but yet not, because we know that, again, people's hearts and minds are changing because of the work you and all of us in the community, everyone's a participant, everyone's doing things in their own way, are putting out there. What has been the response from some of the women in your audience, hearing you and your partners, your co-hostesses, just speak naturally about motherhood and homesteading and all of that? And has there even been anyone who's maybe not exactly consciously white positive yet, who has stumbled across your work, but was amenable to it or changed because of it?
Well, we still have a very tiny following, and our engagement is small, but I would say it's definitely been met with a lot of positivity. We've had a lot of great feedback. I think that for the most part, most of our listenership are women who are pretty aware, at least slightly, of anti-Whiteism and have some pride and ownership of their heritage and that sort of thing. So that does tend to be our audience. And yeah, I think it's just refreshing for women, actually. And so, I hope that we grow our audience and get some more women coming in who aren't familiar with some of the issues that our people are facing, and hopefully we can help awaken them. That's certainly a goal. But yeah, again, I just think it's offering something refreshing to some of these other women, and I think it's good too for women to know that there is a community out there, and that there are other like-minded women, because women are so afraid to speak out. I mean, I listened to was it Clarion Wakefield? Gosh, I mean, she was amazing. She hit home on some really, really important points the other day, and the fear factor that women face is so huge. And that was actually very emotional for me to hear her speaking about that, because she called it out. Women are afraid to speak out. They're so afraid, and rightly so. I mean, they often will face severe ostracization, and that happened to me. But I guess what I would say to them is, you must do it anyway, and you can count on the fact that there are going to be other women like you who feel the same way you do, and they'll be grateful for you speaking out. So I certainly have an aspect of that in my life too. And some of us have to speak for the rest of our women folk, and that's what we're doing. We're speaking for them. So yeah, it's been positive. We had a few haters get on there the other day and call us Karens, but yeah, it's just I don't get offended by things like that at all.
It comes with the territory.
Yeah, it's you get a tough skin.
Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, there is a measure of having to have tough skin. I'll just say really quickly, no one should ever use these names like Karen as a pejorative. That is a name that is widely used by white women, and the anti-whites, of course, they love to turn a white woman's name into a pejorative. And you can see they've been doing this over the past couple of years. There's been several other names that they've turned into pejoratives. So never repeat those sorts of things. And you see them elsewhere as well in other parts of the white positive sphere in general that are not going to go anywhere. They'll stay in their dead ends. You'll see them using the same sort of verbiage. So we never use that here. Yeah. And so I tell you what, though, Sarah, we're going to make sure that your audience gets a hell of a lot bigger. If there's anything Mr. George and I can do, is make sure your audience gets a hell of a lot bigger. But Mr. George, I cut you off. What were you going to say, sir? You're muted.
I know. My mouse didn't get over to the tab in time. No, I was done. Do we have questions from the chat?
Oh, we do indeed. Everybody is so excited about Sarah today. We could do one of my 8-hour streams. Everybody is so excited. We were not going to do it though. I know you got a family, but we have Ohesian Outlaw over here on Entropy, a $25 financial gift. Thank you so much, dear brother. Thank you. And writing, thanks to all of you for being great representatives of our people. Well, thank you so much, Ohesian Outlaw, for the kind words and that financial gift to White Wellbeing. Bartleby over here as well with $25. Another great member, the crown winner, of course, of last week. $25 to White Wellbeing, and writing here, thank you, Sarah, for being such an inspiration to our people. That is most kind of you, Bartleby. Thank you for that. And we have Hansa over here, $5 on Entropy. Thank you so much. And writing, Mrs. Sarah Dye, great for raising your children right. With the name, is it Vasilisa? Vasilisa. Do you have a Slavic heritage? If so, Slavs are almost never, ever anti-white. I also live far in the country and raise fruits and vegetables. Hail to you and your family. So we'll stop there with that question. Do you have Slavic heritage, and any comments on anything that Hansa just wrote?
Well, a hail back to you, and thank you for the compliment. Actually, I, to my knowledge, do not have any Slavic heritage, but I am certainly fond of the people. I actually am of English, German, and Swedish, Danish heritage. So, Northern Europe. But the folktale about Vasilisa the Brave is one that my husband and I have read to our children for years. And as I'm sure you know, there are probably hundreds of versions of the folktale. And I essentially adopted that nickname recently just because of what we have gone through. What I have gone through over the past year is essentially, I liken it to what Vasilisa went through when she was traveling through the forest to get the sewing needle from Baba Yaga, and the ways that she behaved herself righteously in order to get herself out of that terrible situation, essentially at the hands of death. And so yeah, I very much have always loved that folktale, but I also found kind of a little bit of an entertaining identity in her character over the past year. So that's why I'm going by Vasilisa now.
Well, there you have it. So we also have Rum over here on Entropy, $5. Thank you very much, dear lady. And writing here, what a wonderful guest Sarah is. I can relate to so much. Great inspirational show tonight. Kip and go free. Keep it Promethean and go free. Well, thank you very much, Rum. Indeed, back to you. Keep it Kip and go free. Thank you so much for the kind words and the financial gift. And everybody, get your raucous emojis ready for the great Roy Danton doing double duty tonight, moderating and breaking out $50 for a financial gift to White Wellbeing. Thank you, dear brother. And writing over here, there's this claim that, quote, city folks moving, I guess that's moving to the countryside, wouldn't be very welcomed. Do you agree that this is only due to the locals trying to protect their area from anti-whiteism? Sarah, that's for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely do believe that. Now, many country folk won't say that out loud, but it's known. It's definitely known. So I certainly wouldn't let any city folk, I wouldn't want any city folk to let that discourage them from moving out to a rural area. I mean, I think that you'll find that if you have good intentions, you'll be welcomed, and you'll find an aspect of community that you could never possibly experience in the city.
Yeah,
at least the way the cities are now, I should say.
I definitely underscore that. It's clearly an issue of the country folk knowing that the city folk are fleeing what they've done, not in all cases, but in many cases, fleeing what they've done with their ideas, the crime, the everything that comes along with anti-whiteism, also fleeing that biospiritual imbalance that they are experiencing in the environment that they have now made alien to themselves by bringing in so many different peoples from all of these different lands who then begin projecting their biospirits onto their environment. And then they feel that discordance when they go out into the world. So even if they're not victimized, even if they don't have children that need a better school because they've ruined the schools by the policies they voted for, everywhere they go in their world, they feel this discordance. And so they, at some point, may seek to leave. And then very often they come out with their ideas. And then they say, well, you've got it all wrong here. You really, what you want to do is you want to be anti-white as possible. You have to villainy signal that you're anti-white. But yeah, don't allow that. If you live in the city, just do signal healthy things. Signal that you're going free to the country people. And they will happily embrace you. Over here on Cash App, we have Yiz financially gifting $5. Thank you so much for that, Yiz. And writing today, go free, live free, reach the stars. I like that. Well written. $5 from Yiz. And the great Slots back again, financially gifting $10 and saying everything that he wanted to say with those $10. So thank you so very much for that. And that's Cash App. We have a question from one of our regulars, Spencer's thoughts for Sarah. And it is this: can you ask the guest, what is the best way to attract women like her to our movement? She seems very lucid. Well, she definitely seems very lucid, brother. Thank you for the question. Sarah, any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really know. I mean, attracting women to the movement. I mean, I guess it would be a lot like what Jared was talking about, which is just presenting the more cultural side of things. I mean, I think that typically, for the most part, and this is difficult for me to say because I am very much interested in the political side. I have a high tolerance for absorbing some of the negative stuff that's going on out there. A lot of women don't, and that's very natural. So I think that offering more of a cultural thing is probably going to be your best bet. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have females in your life, introducing them to such things as, like, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of traditionalist Western art, but I'm sure you guys know of more. But there are some accounts that are just like you said, putting out beautiful imagery and inspiring pictures of happy families and things like that. So, I mean, just the cultural aspect, I guess, is all I can offer. I mean, as far as, what attracts me to my husband, as far as like getting a mate or something like that, it's more so being very much in tune with nature. And he is, he's skilled in primitive skills and homesteading stuff. And to me, that offers a sense of security and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I used to recommend to men who are trying to meet women who are awakened to these sorts of things to go to primitive skills gatherings, because you might, if that's the sort of thing that you're interested in, they do exist all over the country. But I don't know. That's about all I can offer off the top of my head. But I'll try to ponder that some more, maybe do a longer blog post about it.
And we look forward to that, absolutely. And I'll add on to what you just said, that it is part of what we are doing here. We have the psychological defense, we have the new myth of the West, we're building culture. That's why we have the garage parties, and we are nurturing the arts as best as we possibly can, because building a community, building a culture, and something that is wholesome, something that is based in love, is going to attract good women. It's going to attract good men. And so if you are a good man, you want to get involved in what we are doing here and build with what we are building, and you will find a good woman will come along, and she will choose you, and you all will be able to build a happy family together. This is the place where it's happening, and you see it more and more, and you will continue to see it more and more as we move forward. Jared, did you have any thoughts before we get to the remaining financial gifts and the questions over here on entropy?
No, I just heartily second everything that I'm hearing. So Amen. Please go on.
We are preaching from Jared's fountain, the fountain of Jared George today.
Oh, we're all drawing from the same fountain. You know that. That's
true. I know, of course.
You'd be the first to say that.
I know. Yeah, that's what we've said before, everyone, that Jared George and I jibed so well immediately because we found each other both on one knee before the Spirit of the West. And that's how it worked. So we have Roy Danton over here, back again, the great hero, financially gifting $20. I plan on moving to the countryside. And to be honest, I would expect people to get very suspicious once they see my car's license plates, and then to welcome me once they know me better. Well, that very, very mature of you, brother, and that's demonstrating the kind of patience that we've seen. Roy has one of these, Sarah, I don't know if you know, Roy is one of these champions that came out of a place that was very dark, getting and leading him nowhere. And he started going free and addressing the mean pathogens in his life. And he has just skyrocketed, this guy. What a champion Roy has become. So many folks here. Let me get over here to the question widget, occasionally known as the tall Kevin widget. And we have Mestizo writing, "Hello, Tap. I apologize for my long absence from the chat. I was taking time to cleanse myself of, speak of the devil, mean pathogens." Okay, well, great. That's fantastic. Share one of them that you've found in yourself that you weren't aware of when you got started. We also have Yiz over in the question widget writing, "Jason and Jared, I thought this monitor would be big enough. I guess my eyes there's a conspiracy. My eyes are not going bad. It's just the monitors are getting worse." Jared and Jason, in light of the awful events of the last couple weeks, do you have any new suggestions, topics about how to approach those who haven't gone free yet. Stay free, brothers. Well, we'll also pose that to Sarah because she's doing a lot of that good work herself. And we'll start with our guest, or Sarah, if you'd like for Jared to start. Either way, it's good with us. Okay, Jared.
Go ahead, Jared.
Mr. George.
Well, I'm sure, if you want the master class, tune into Going Free, Jason's stream, of course, on Sunday nights, and read his book because it's perennial wisdom. I would say the only quick thing, given that this is just one question of many on a stream like this, we want to hear from Sarah as well. I'll keep it brief. I would just say that right now, with the events happening, it's very easy, and it's not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, to speak about how, in general, when the whole panoply, the whole bell curve of a given people is together, different peoples create different societies. They have different ways of being in when they gather in a town or a city or a state, or they have majority. We can talk about that, and I think I don't have to go into detail. I think we all know there's ample examples that we can pull. And a lot of people are taking that tack right now, and because a lot of people are angry and scared, and very well should be. There's the potential of violence. It's a very uncertain time. Emotions are high. But because of that, because emotions are high, whenever anything is getting crazy, it's time to doubly center yourself, take a breath, remain calm, because your thoughts can very easily be scattered in a time like this. So first, I always say you have sovereignty first and foremost over your own life, over your own thoughts, and those of your immediate family. So take care of that first, remain centered. But the questioner was asking about other people. So I would say, I would add that as I began, perhaps with some people, it's not best to start with, even with all the ample evidence and all the crazy stuff going on, with the different biospiritual expressions and getting into what we were talking about before. Maybe that would bleed into the crime stats and all that kind of thing. We also need to have, the main point of our ire is the regime itself, is the narrative itself that has allowed this to happen, that has fanned these flames for decades, that has planted these poison seeds, both in our own people and in non-white peoples as well, and why all this is festering up. So for a lot of people, it's still, even given the present events, it's a very tough pill to swallow to say, well, isn't it time to XYZ, new policies, new ways of life, looking at these people a little differently. Even now, there's some people who, when you start to go down that road, their immediate defense, because they're still steeped in the mainstream, is, no, that's hateful. I judge people, individuals, content of their character, all of that stuff. That's still going to be there even now. So I think perhaps you need to read the room, but it may be wise to still focus on the fact that our mainstream media, mainstream education has made it this way. They have put this poison into people's minds. They have told us, they have told everyone that we're evil, we owe people, we have this original sin, born guilty, as is the title of Jason's book. That might give you more of an in, because it makes it less about certain people and more about the psychological warfare that's been done to our people. Sarah, any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a daily challenge, and this is something that my lady friends and I have been talking about a lot. And I certainly don't have any real solid answers, to be honest. I hesitate to even present this one because I don't want it to be fear mongering, but at the same time, I just think it's really important for people to realize that we have to look to the future. And when the demographics have shifted enough in the country, in our Western countries, we are simply no longer going to have control of our destiny. And I just think that's something so foundational and simple to point out. And it's easy to point out what types of people that, you know, the anti-whites, the various anti-whites, what type of policies they're pushing for. And with the current events, I mean, you really couldn't ask for a more blatant example of what exactly it is that they want. And they say it with their own words. They want to dismantle Western civilization. They hate it. And I suppose it comes down to, are you with them or are you not? You know, are you with them? Like, do you want to dismantle Western civilization? Do you want the future of your children or your grandchildren, or for yourself to be destroyed? Do you want to live in a world where you're going to have a very hard time getting a job or providing for yourself or your family, where perhaps crimes are committed against you and there's no law and order to bring people to justice? I mean, it seems so simple, and it can actually be quite frustrating at times for me, because I do have people in my life who I care about, who I'm close to, and I see them repeating the meme pathogens regularly throughout all of this, and it's like, you know, that deep down they know this, but they're so afraid to go free. So it's challenging. I don't have all the answers, but I guess, like I said, just perhaps breaking it down mathematically and just showing, I mean, here's, you know, how these people vote. This is what happens. These are the policies that get put in place when the voting goes their way. And with the numerical courage, right? That has a lot to do with that. So that's really all I have to offer at this time, unfortunately, on that one.
No, I think that's, bro, you both gave fantastic answers to Yiz, and Yiz also wanted me to apologize to you because thought that you would be gone by the time that question was read. So fortunately, you were still here, and she won't leave before we do, Yiz. So she'll be here until we wrap up. And we have, let's see, looks like Casa JB financially gifting $10 over here on Entropy. Thank you so much. And writing simply the word love. Thank you so much for that. And yes, indeed, we do love Sarah, and we're glad that she's a part of this rapidly growing community in service to white well-being. Roy Danton back again, another $10 by our dear friend and moderator and hero. I grew up in the countryside. When I heard those chickens behind you earlier in the stream, I even got a bit jealous. That's great, Roy. And Kara Bassett over here on Entropy as well. $10. Thank you so much for that. NWG, great guest. Can you make sure to ask for her program information again? Yes, before we let her go. All of her information has been shared in the live chat, and you all will be able to find that once the video is posted in the live chat. She will also give much of it or all of it again at the very end, and it will be on my website and the shared website for Jared and myself, theafterparty.tv. The guests' contacts are not shared in the description below because we received a strike for doing that. So we don't do that anymore. The anti-whites at YouTube look for any old reason to give us a strike, and so we're gonna have to be careful. Now, who do we have? Oh, I know we have some more financial gifts over here. Zero Talent, one of our great heroes over here, financially gifting on Cash App $5, and writing, overcoming anti-whiteism, raising healthy boys, Kip. Amen to that, Zero Talent, $5 and great words. And 41 BMC, $20. Thank you so much, dear friend. $20, another great hero. And writing here, happy Friday, everyone. Kip, indeed, brother. Thank you so much for being here. As always, a great champion in our community. And we'll let that refresh as I swivel back around this direction. We have some more questions in the question widget. And they read, let's see. This is something about Moy says something about link to Sarah. And is this Sarah's channel that you're sharing over there? I'll take a look at it, and maybe we'll get back to you in a moment.
We have a great regular comment from Bartleby, who's often with us. I just want to say,
sure.
Sarah is such an asset for our folk, presentable, articulate, and love for our people. So.
Oh.
There you go. You get a lot of love in the chat, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's very kind.
And I 100% agree.
Oh.
And let's see. Over here we have Mestizo. One of the MPs was how I communicated online. It's been a problem I had throughout the mid to late 2010s. My young age of 22 does not excuse any such behavior. I refuse to be another Heimbach. Ah, I see what you're saying there. You were going down the path of being the bad guy in the anti-white narrative. So many have done that, but it's okay. This is a movement of redemption. You can come back and you can be the hero in our story rather than the bad guy in theirs. And I think that might be almost everything. We'll see. We'll give another moment to see if there are any more financial gifts or questions. Please tag Jared or myself. But I got a big question for Sarah. You're going to come back, right?
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
Right. Fantastic. Well, we're almost out of time. So what we'll have you do is we'll have you tell folks where they can find you, what your contacts are, what you're doing, the shows you're doing, repeat all of that sort of thing, especially because this is going to go up in audio only on Spreaker. And so they won't be able to see that information. So anybody driving around in their car right now, listening in replay, now's the time to get out your pen and paper, pull over to the side of the road because she's about to give you her contact info. Please, young lady, and any final thoughts that you have?
Well, no, not really. I feel like we covered so much, and I would certainly be honored to come back. It's been a huge honor to get to chat with both of you. I very much admire what you're doing. I'm very grateful for you and your work. And I wish everyone well. I wish all the listeners and our community safety. And I always want to tell you all to take time to go out in nature. Take your shoes off, put your bare feet on the earth, and feel the sun on your skin. And don't forget, who you are and who our people are, and stay positive. But yeah, so the podcast, we are on YouTube right now, as long as they, allow us to stay there. That's where we are. Hearth and Helm. And we also have a Subscribe Star where my lady friends and I blog about things that might interest you. So Subscribe Star is also Hearth and Helm. You can send us an email at hearthandhelm@protonmail.com. We also have a Telegram channel. We're also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So that's Hearth and Helm. If you want to follow me personally, I also have a Twitter. It's at FarmSchooner on Twitter. And I think that pretty much covers everything. I will give a plug really quickly. I didn't get a chance to say, but we are fighting back legally to the individuals in the local government who have endorsed and supported this outright terror that's been perpetrated on my family. And so we do have a legal fund for that as well. People can check that out on our website, which is schoonercreekfarm.org, and that's SCHOONER.
Excellent. I actually just followed you on Telegram, and I advise everyone to do so. And as Jason said, if you're listening in replay on both of our individual sites and the shared site, theafterparty.tv, as always, the guest links will be there. And you can use that site to search all past guests and topics. If what you've heard tonight was interesting to you and you want to hear more, you can look. Also, speaking of more, you go a little more into your story about the farmers market thing with Lana on Red Ice, right? You were on Red Ice some time ago, our friends there. So please go check Sarah out there as well. And well, for closing comments, of course, this has been wonderful. The chat is just very excited. You're glowing with the spirit of the West, like the parents, and people recognize it. And as we were saying, as we were discussing on the Middle of Tonight's show, that's what ripples out. We be that example. We be that light that is different than the commenter that was speaking a couple moments ago that Jason was speaking about, where there's a downward spiral you can take in all of this as well. And we're here to navigate that. It's a tough thing to navigate, but we can all help each other with that. So thank you so much for your example, Sarah, and everything that you're doing. It was really wonderful to speak tonight. And as I said, we'll have you back on for maybe more specified topics, getting a little more into the nitty gritty of homesteading, of homeschooling. Again, two things I know women especially, but men too, in our chat are interested in hearing more about, and whatever else we may want to speak about. For me, I'm thegreatorder.com. That's where all of my stuff goes through, everybody. So if you're new to this, because we do have new people coming in all the time, that is where you can get a catalog of everything I've done, contact information, and all of that good stuff. But we'll speak to you all again very soon. My friend Jason, you could take us out for the evening, my friend.
I will indeed. This really has been a glorious time. Jared, doesn't this just feel like we're sort of co-opting an image that the anti-whites have put onto themselves that has nothing to do with their reality. We're the ones who are actually wholesome. We're the ones who are actually in harmony with our environments. We're the ones who are actually in harmony with our creations. And this thought
Absolutely.
of taking off the shoes, and I just had like this vision, taking off the shoes, being in the cool grass on a summer day, and talking about maybe Prometheus Rising, going free, talking about the MPs that we've been infected with over the course of our lives that have really caused many of us to make ruinous decisions in our lives. What could be more health-giving? What could be more salubrious than that? Sitting around and fantasizing about how there used to be no males, and that, I mean, come on, this is lunacy. So yeah, I mean, and how wonderful is this place to be, isn't it? That we have Sarah here, who has become, her and her husband, such magnificent champions, and she came from being in this very anti-white place, and then we have Mestizo talking about being in a place where he was almost going down the path of looking like the ne'er-do-well in the anti-white narrative. Both have ended up in this healthy place, and we're growing from there outward. That is the difference that we are making here. And let's get a big round of applause going for, I think it might be a first-time financial gifter, Marjorie. Financially gifting $40 today. Thank you so much. If it's not your first time, I apologize. But if it is, then we welcome you. $40 and writing here, thank you for sharing Sarah's story. Well, thank you so much. Please become a follower of her and all the work that she's doing. And thank you all out there who are giving her the raucous emojis and applause that we know that she deserves. Why don't you keep them going, the raucous emojis, for our great moderators, Seaver and Roy Danton, who fortunately ended up not having to deal with too many troublemakers. I don't know that any showed up, but thank you both very much for your moderating. And Mr. George, thank you so much for everything that you do to make these shows educational and entertaining to everybody in the community. Is a great love for me to be able to work with you and to be able to bring wonderful people like Sarah on that are just amazing.
So, it's likewise. It's a love fest.
It is a love fest. We are hey, brother, and this is the thing. People can look out, and they're looking right now. I cannot tell you how many people, and let this, everybody who's listening now, get excited about this. I cannot tell you how many people are writing me who have things like "Go Trump" in their banners, and who were formerly of this mindset that they were just the patriotic type or the conservative type, and everybody thought, you'll never get those people, all those hundreds of millions around the world who think that way. You'll never get those folks to come over. Well, they're having an option right now, and they're looking out and they're saying, well, geez, we can care about white people without having to look like the bad guy in that story that we've heard our whole lives. Or we can continue with the conservatives, and we can have sections of cities taken over. We can have law enforcement that won't protect us anymore, our most vulnerable members. Geez, what's it going to be? Well, they're coming to us, and in larger and faster numbers, exactly as we had discussed. And we are giving them this curative contagion, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? If you want a great example of whether or not this is a curative contagion, just look at Sarah right here. She's adopting this, and you know that every single person she touches are going to be able to go free as
living proof. Living proof. Yes.
And we just had Moy come in with a financial gift of $3 more over here on Entropy. Don't think so. $3 wouldn't quite cover what the request is, and that is 4 more hours of this. Some other time, my friend, some other time.
We appreciate your generosity, but I don't know about 4 hours tonight. You also have to remember Sarah's a mother and a wife, but we appreciate the sentiment. And again, Sarah will be back. So cumulative, it will eventually
that's right.
4 hours with Sarah.
But I want to thank everybody who financially gifted tonight. You all mean so much to us. Everybody who commented in the live chat as well. Or if you just stuck back, you were a wallflower the entire time, that's okay too. You don't have to talk. Just go free and improve yourself, improve your families. Reach out with love to everyone you can while we have time to do it, because these are the days that our descendants will write about. When they look back and they say, who were the heroes? It'll be the names of these great people that you see in the live chat now.
I usually don't do this, Jason. I'm interjecting you at the end. There's one word I just saw in the chat. I wanted to say it before. Sarah, if you're not aware, we like to use the word pristine.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a perfect example, like the love we're talking about right now, this high note we're ending the show on. This is the pristine energy that we cultivate here in this community. And this was an especially pristine tap.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good word.
It is indeed. And we even have people using the pulse meter over on Entropy to share how much they like this stream, how happy they are with the stream. Yay. But it has been a pristine stream, and we look forward to having many more and having Sarah back. We love you all, and we look forward to seeing you next time.